Head over to BoardGamePrices.com to see the best price on Bosk and thousands of other games. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today it's all about trees, because we're going to be going through the 4 different seasons, planting majestic trees, scoring points, and then watching those leaves fall, trying to control different areas on the board, scoring points then again. Today we're taking a look at Bosk. This is a game of majestic trees and falling leaves, and it's brought to us by Floodgate Games, which is the same publisher of Sagrada, and it's the same design team as Sagrada as well. It's 2 to 4 players, takes 30 to 45 minutes to play. Let me show you how it works, and I'll see you on the other side for my final thoughts. At the beginning of Bosk, each player is going to pick a color, and in that color they're going to get 8 different trees, numbered 1 through 4. There's 2 of each of those. You're also going to get a stack of leaf tiles that you're going to be using to place out leaves onto the board. In the second half, everyone gets a really cool squirrel, some excellent components, and gives the game great table presence. The game is played over 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. In the spring phase, it's essentially the first half of the game, players are going to take turns going clockwise and placing one of their trees on one of the intersections of these grid lines. Now this board is for 3 or 4 players, 3 players up to this line, 4 players for the whole board. When you flip it over, it's a larger squared 2-player experience. So the mechanisms in spring are very simple. Everyone is just literally going to be placing a tree in an intersection just like that. So at the end of spring, it might look something like this. And once all the trees are out, you go into summer where you're going to score all these trees. For each column and row, you're going to add up the numbers of all the trees of the like player and see who has the highest, and the first and second place are going to score points. For example, in this column, the purple player has a 2 and a 1, that's 3. This player has 1, so purple is going to win first place, yellow is going to win second place, 2 points for first place, 1 point for second place. You're going to do that for every column and every row. And there's different ways to split the points if there's ties like that. And points are tracked on this acorn scale where you use the leaves. Now the leaves for each player color are different. I think that's really cool. Now setting up for the second half of the game with autumn, whoever had the least amount of points going into this phase gets to set where this board goes. And this is important because this is going to show you for the next 8 rounds, the second half of the game, the wind is going to be changing. It's going to be blowing in certain directions where these arrows are. And depending on which side of the board you place this on, like for example here, in the first round, the wind is going to be going in this direction. But if this player chose to put this on the top of the board, it would have been facing in this direction if it got flipped the other way. So this is really cool because when you're placing these trees, you don't necessarily know which ways the winds are going to go for the rest of the game until after that scoring, and that keeps everything really interesting and keeps it so that you can't sort of be a robot and always do the same thing each game. But let's say they put it here, okay? Now let's just say the purple player is going first. What this is saying is that you have to play from one of your number 1 trees, and the wind is going to be going in this left direction. Now the 2 purple trees that are number 1s are here and here. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be placing leaves falling off these trees in that direction that the wind is. And it wouldn't be smart to go here because what you're trying to do is cover these different areas. You'll see the different areas around the board. It's going to be area control for those. And this one can literally only go 1 space in this 3-player game. So you wouldn't want to choose that tree, but we'll choose this one and we can start to blow leaves falling that way. Now each player has these leaf tiles, and these range from 2 all the way to 8, but each of these will only be used once each game, so you have to decide when and where to play which number. Let's say we selected this one. We would take this, we would kind of remove it from the game, and we would place 5 of these in our supply. So these basically would be our hand, and we're going to be placing these out on the board. So if you remember, I have 5 leaves to place. I'm going to place it from this number 1 tree. It has to be a number 1, and it's blowing in this left direction. So the first one has to be to the left of this tree, but the one after that can be here, here, or here. As long as it's going in this direction, you're okay. You have to keep going in that direction for all 5. So maybe if I wanted to focus on this sort of yellow area and this water area, I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. Or I could have kind of gone down this way and maybe trying to hit a bunch of different areas, but that would have essentially been my turn for this round. And once you've placed all the leaves, the tree gets removed. So as the game goes on, trees are going to be getting removed by everybody. So at the end of the first round, it might look something like this, where all 3 players, in this case, have placed leaves from their number 1 trees and removed them. Then you'd go to the next round, which is now everyone has to select one from the number 2 tree, and the wind is going this way. And you'll do the same thing for all these rounds. The second half of the autumn, you know the direction of the wind, but you can choose any of the trees, gives you some flexibility towards the end of the game. Now when placing leaves, you can actually place them on top of other leaves. Let's say this player was doing their number 2 tree. Let's say they were gonna put 4 leaves out. So they could put one here, but to go on top of one, you have to play one, but you have to also get rid of one for each leaf that's underneath. So in this case, I have to get rid of one of these, put it back into my supply from the amount of leaves that I selected. So it actually costs you leaves in order to go on top of piles. Now let's assume this tree was placed here in the first half of the game. It's a number 2 and the wind is going in this direction. Each player has one leaf tile that's a squirrel. And they can place a squirrel, assuming you go in the direction of the wind, up to 3 spots from the tree. So you could go 1, let's say 2. You can jump this right here, and this allows you to basically go on top of any leaves that are there, and now you have control of this and nobody can go on top of that squirrel. It's a way of sort of just jumping on, and getting control of that spot. So again, after the first 4 rounds of that autumn, the wind is going to start going in the same direction again as it did before in that sequence. However, now you can choose any of the trees that are out there. You don't have to select a specific number. So everybody will have a 1, a 2, and a 3, and a 4 left for the second half of the game, and you continue doing that same thing. Now, once all those 8 rounds are over in that autumn phase, you go to winter, where you're going to score each of the different areas on the board. And you're simply going to look at who has the leaves on top, who has the most. Red has 3 in this area, yellow has 2, and purple has 1. So red is going to win first place, and yellow is going to win second place. And it's 5 points for first, 3 points for second, and there's some different rules for tiebreakers. You're going to do that for all of the different areas that's on the board. And at that point, whoever has the most points is the winner. All right, let's first talk about table presence. I played this at the Arizona Game Fair, and everybody that walked by stopped and looked at it on the table and went, "What is this? What are you playing?" Having those trees out that just look beautiful, that just stand up 3D like that, it has a lot of table presence. The game just looks cool. The board looks nice, the art looks nice, the trees, the leaves, all that stuff. Excellent table presence and components and things like that for this game. This game has simple rules and a lot of depth. It's my favorite types of games. I always talk about my depth to complexity ratio, meaning how deep can a game be with having the rules set as simple as possible? And this game has that. The rules are very simple. The game is very easy to teach, but there are excruciatingly tough decisions to make throughout the game. And I love that aspect, and this has that in spades. I like how the first half really sets up the really tough decisions for the second half, because the first half you're trying to place your trees, you're trying to figure out which numbers to put where, you're trying to score those points in the first half during the first scoring, and you're trying to figure out, okay, I got to get on rows and columns to help me score points, but at the same time I'm also limiting myself or setting myself up for certain things. So it's like, do I want to go to this row at the very edge that I think I might be able to score 3 points for because no one else is going to be there? But it's going to really limit where I can go with that, with the leaves. And if the wind goes in a direction that I'm not really happy with, and I don't make the right decisions, I forget about that tree, it can hurt me in the second half. So I love how that first half really sets up a lot of the strategies for the second half. And even some of the decisions are tough because you got to figure out, do I want to go for really big points now or really set myself up for better things later? Tough decisions throughout the game. I like those 2 different ways of scoring, for putting those up in the rows and then for the area control. I love the thematic sort of wind blowing. So you've got the trees, you got the numbers, it's going to blow at certain times in different ways, and you're going to have to figure out which one of these numbered trees am I going to blow in this direction, and where are those going to go. So I love how that's sort of a thematic element of dropping those leaves for the area control there. I like how the leaf numbers, you're selecting the leaf numbers during your turns from that second half of the game, and you're trying to figure out how many leaves is this tree going to drop. And I like how the options sort of diminish as the game goes on. And it's possible that if you don't think through things well enough throughout the game, you could possibly paint yourself into a corner where you're like, oh man, I only have these 2 or 3 leaf tiles left. Look at the trees I have out. I did not think about this well enough. And I like how your decisions kind of get down, and the decisions get tougher, even though sometimes you have less choices. It's a cool aspect of the game. I like looking ahead at the direction of the wind and which trees are left. So, when it gets to about 4 turns left in that second half, you're looking at the wind, you're looking at who has trees where, you're looking at your leaf tiles, and you're going, okay, I gotta figure out a plan here. And I love looking forward, figuring out, okay, with these trees, I could use the wind going in that direction. That'll be 2 turns from now. So now I want to do this with this tree. And it's like you're trying to figure out this puzzle at different stages of the game and trying to work with that. It's such a really cool thing to think about. The little squirrel, that's cool. Adds another sort of layer of depth. You can basically just jump right on a big pile of leaves, take it right there. So that's cool too. Now this game definitely has more depth than first appears. When you first play it, it's like, okay, I'll put these trees here, we'll score, we'll do the leaves. But man, again, as I mentioned about the looking forward and looking at the wind, there's definitely a lot of depth here for sure. I like that it's easily expandable. You could probably easily add new boards and things like that. So that's it. So overall, wow, did I really, really love this game. Anything negative about the game? Sure. A few things. Number one, the rules say that the first play, if you play your lowest tile in the second half of the game, the lowest number, you get to go first next round. I don't think first is always an advantage. It can be, because if you go first towards the end of the game, you can kind of make a path and other players have to go on top of you possibly, and it costs more. But in the beginning, you might want to go last to see what other people do first and then make your decisions there. So I don't like that first player is just given to the person who plays the lowest one, because it should really just be a choice. They can decide who goes first. I think that should be the better way to do this. I don't like that. I don't think that first player thing is really balanced well enough. The leaf tokens for the scoring, I don't think works well enough. The red one doesn't really even fit on where the acorn is that well. They're kind of hard to pick up and move quickly as you're scoring everybody. I wish they would have actually maybe had something sort of stick up a little bit, maybe like an acorn, or even if it was a leaf, but maybe it was different, it stood up where it was easier to move. And the game has a separate side of the board for the 2 players, and it works well. I typically always like area control games with more than 2. The game works fine, the board scales well, so it does work well with 2. But for area control, I'm usually going to play these with 3 or more players. But that's it. The game's fantastic. Great package. This was on my list of my top 10 anticipated games, and it lived up to that. It was very high on that list too. So it's going to be getting a saxophone serenade. This has been the Game Boy Geek, breaking down barriers and growing relationships through board games by helping you find the next one you'll love. The overview in this video was shot on a Watson model Game Topper. Upgrade every game you play with the ultimate gaming accessory. Game Toppers, shipping now. Check them out at GameToppersLLC.com.